All right, Rabbi, good morning. Let's begin. Might be cold outside, Baruch Hashem, but it is so warm around the fire of Torah. Baruch Hashem. All right, Rabbi, our shir this month is dedicated by Paul and Kathy Pollack, in memory of Solomon Floret, Pollack, Zara Bas Avram, Shmuel ben Zechariah. May their neshamas have an aliyah and the family a nechama. All right, Rabbi, let's begin. Let's begin. So today's daf is Samechei 65. We are. No, I did not get your text.
Let's give it up.
Nothing came through. Go ahead, Will. Tell me. Just tell me.
My son had a report.
Mazel tov. The Gertners are dedicating the shir in honor of their son, in honor of the birth of their grandson, in honor of my son Craig and his wife Miri, having given birth to our first granddaughter. And congratulations to big brothers Ruvain, Zev, and Ezra by Milt and Melanie Gertner. Mazel tov, mazel tov, Milton, mazel tov, mazel tov. Shkoyach. I'm sorry I didn't get the text. All right. What's wrong? Can you swivel this? Could this if you have the Shkoyach Milton, mazel tov, mazel tov. All right, Rabbi, say let's begin. So today's daf is Samechei. We are picking up Samech Daled Amud Beis 64b, and I will say we are picking up with the following. Remember, okay, so let's reorient ourselves a little bit. So remember again, we were speaking about the Ger Toshav. Specifically, question: does the Ger Toshav have the ability to go ahead and be mevatel Avoda Zara or not? That is the fundamental issue we are dealing with over here. So remember again, we were suggesting, based on the price yesterday, that the Ger Toshav does have the ability to be mevatel Avoda Zara. So the Gemara ended off by saying no. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, we'll say 6 lines up from the bottom. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, lo litain rishus v'levatel rishus. No, in fact, the Bryce was not describing the Ger Toshav's ability to go ahead and be mevatel Avoda Zara. Rather, again, it was speaking about the Ger Toshav is treated like an akum regarding Eruv Chatzeros. Remember again, just a bit of background. The halacha is that if you have multiple homes that open up into a shared courtyard, although midorais you can carry from those homes into the courtyard because it's all considered to be rishus hayachid. Midrabanan, because that rishus hayachid of the courtyard is shared by multiple mishpachos, you have to engage in what's called an eruv chatzeros, where essentially again all of the members of that chatzer join into one joint ownership through depositing food in one particular domicile. When they do that, it becomes as if the courtyard is owned by one home, and at that point in time, everyone could go ahead and carry into the chatzar. The Gemara discusses, so the Kiddusanya, Yisrael Mumar, Mishamer Shabbos B'Shuk, Mevato Rishus. So we'll say if you have a Yisrael Mumar, who is at least Shomer Shabbos publicly, Shomer Shabbos B'Shuk, he's Shomer Shabbos publicly, even though privately he's Mechalo Shabbos. The halacha is mevatel rishus. So we'll say if he doesn't join in the eruv, it's okay. He could be mevatel. He could essentially negate his ownership in the chatzar over the course of Shabbos, so as to allow the other Jews to join in an eruv. She'in mishamer Shabbos b'shuk. But if he's mechalo Shabbos befarhes, if he doesn't even keep Shabbos in the marketplace, ein mevatel rishus. Ultimately, again, at that point in time, he cannot just simply be mevatel his rishus to allow the other Jews to carry. Because Chazal said, Yisrael knows in rishus and mevatel rishus. But say Yisrael, if for some reason he did not join into the chatzar, so he could go ahead and give rishus, meaning he could allow the other members of the chatzar to go ahead and make the eruv without him, which both say essentially means yielding or ceding his ownership rights in the chatzar just for the purposes of Shabbos, or mevatel his rishus. Uba ovid kochavim, but we'll say if you have an akum in the chatzar, ad sheyiskar. Ultimately, again, the only way to make an eruv chatzeros when there is the presence of an akum is to go ahead and rent his ownership interest. Ketzad. So how does it work with the Jew? Omer lo rishusi kinu yilecha. The Jew could say, my rishus is acquired to you. Rishusi muvutelas lecha. Or ultimately, again, my rishus is bottled to you. So the Gemara says, Knei, and go ahead and acquire it. And for a Jew, the other Jews in the Chatzar do not need to do any kind of type of acquisition. So we'll say, so the point over here, the Gemara is suggesting is that the Ger Toshav has the same status as an akum for purposes of Eruv Chatzeros. that the same way again that you have to rent the property or the ownership interest of the akum in order to make an erev chatzeros, you would have to rent the ownership interest of the ger toshav as well. So we'll say, so just how do we paskin like this? So the Shulchan Aruch paskins will say, Ovid kochavim mavat la'avodas kochavim afapi she'eno shalo. An akum has the ability to negate avodah zara, even if it's not his avodah zara, and even if he doesn't worship that avodah zara. So this is very important. So again, so even if it's not his, and even if he doesn't see, akum A worships Merkulis, he could still be mavatal bal par. Aval katan shinodei b'tiv avodas kochavim v'chein shota v'chein misha ino ovid avodas kochavim. But I will say, someone who doesn't understand idolatry or doesn't worship idolatry, kigon ger toshav einam yecholim levatla. So we'll say, so Allah Chamaisa Shulchan Aruch paskins that a ger toshav, who is someone, a Gentile who has renounced idolatry, cannot be mevatel avodah zara. Only an akum himself can be mevatel avodah zara. The chiddush is what? A, even if it's not his avodah zara, he can be mevatel it. And B, even if he doesn't worship that particular avodah zara, he can be mevatel it as us. Well, I'm going to tell a story now. Actually, interesting ma'isa. Rav Yehuda shadrei korbana, top of Samechei. La'avidarna b'yomidam. So we'll say Rav Yehuda sent a gift to this guy, Avidarna. Avidarna was an Akum, that was his name, on the Akum's Yomtiv. I will say that contradicts the first Mishnah in the Masechta, that you can't give the Akum something on his Yomtiv. So Amar Rav Yehuda said, Yedana de lo palach la'avodas kochavim. I know he's not really from. He's like a shtickle. He's like a little modern. He's a modern Akum. So I'll say so the Maisa again. He's not a from Akum, and I know that he doesn't go ahead and worship his idolatry. So I know that he doesn't really worship his idolatry. So because of that, ultimately again, I could send him a gift on his Yom Tiv, and what? And the Maisa, he's not going to cause him to dive into his idolatry. Amar Rabbi Yosef Atanya. Ezu ger toshav kol shekiba Allah bifnei gimel chaverim shalo la'avod avodas kochavim. But 1 second. But if that's the case, that he's an akum who doesn't worship idolatry, then Rabbi said, then what? That should make him a ger toshav. But yet we learned that you can only become a ger toshav if what? If lamaisa again, you go ahead and you renounce idolatry in front of 3 people. To which the Gemara says, no, kitan yahahi lachyoso. We'll say, no. That status of ger toshav that is only acquired when one repudiates idolatry in front of a basin of 3, that Rabbi will say is when there would be a mitzvah to sustain that individual. Remember again, halacha l'maisa, ger toshav is someone who has renounced idolatry and lives within the Jewish community. There is an obligation to take care. There is an obligation from the Jewish community to take care of that individual. Mitzvah lachyoso. So when does that mitzvah kick in? That's when he repudiates idolatry in front of a beis din of 3. That's when you would have lachyoso. But lamaisa, again, in terms of being able to send him a gift for not worshiping idolatry, being able to send him a gift, if you know that he doesn't worship his idolatry, you could send him a gift even on the idolatrous Yom Tiv. So says the Gemara, V'ha amar Rabbi bar Chana amar Rabbi Yochanan, Beit Rabbi bar Chana said the name Rabbi Yochanan, ger toshav, she'avru alav yud beis chodesh v'lo mal, harehu kimin sheva avdi kochavim. Listen to this. This is actually a wild statement. Rabbi Bachana says that a ger toshav who 12 months went by and he didn't do bris milah, he is like a min in the avdi kochavim. Which means, we'll say now, to be a min sheva avdi kochavim means you're not only an idolater, but what? Right? You're a mamish like an idolater. You're a starker. So what does this mean? A ger toshav has to do bris milah. To which the Gemara says, Hasam, kigon shekibel alav lamo v'lo mal. Both say what that's talking about is as follows. If there's a ger toshav who essentially has gone ahead and announced his intentions to convert, right? To convert. And now what happens? He doesn't carry through on those intentions for 12 months. Then we assume that what does that mean? That he has lapsed back to his former ideology. We take that as an understanding that ultimately, again, he has reverted back to Avoda Zara. So we'll say, so now the Gemara is introducing us to this interesting idea that if you know of an akum who essentially is not from, he's not really worshipping his idolatry, that halacha l'maisi, you don't necessarily have to treat him as an akum. So listen to another story. Rava amti le korbanah le bar shishach biyom idam. So let's listen to this. Rava sent a gift to bar shishach. So bar shishach is the name of another Ovid Avodah Zara on the day of his Yom Tiv. So he sent him a gift on the Yom Tiv. Amr Yidana Beit Lo Palach Lavos Chom. I know that he doesn't really dive into the idols. I know that he's not so from. Azul, let's listen to this. Azul Ashkeched Yosef Atzavari Bevarda. So we'll say, so one time what happened? Rabbi went into the bathhouse and he found that Bar Shishach was sitting in the bath, covered up to his neck in rose petals. The Kaima Zonos Arumos Kame. And they were unclothed prostitutes in front of him. So listen to this. So Bar Shishach says to Rava, Amrle, Isluchu ki agavna la'alma da'asi. So Bar Shishach says to Rava, tell me, is your Olam Haba like this? So Bar Shishach was saying, like pretty much like, this is the life, right? Can you? Does your Olam Haba measure up to this at all? Amrle di dana difatve. Rava says, yes, in fact, our Olam Haba is even better than this. So Amrle di dana difatve mihai. Amrle tve mihai mihava. Bar Shishach says, come on, is there anything better than this? Zonos and rose petals, right? Zonos, rose petals, and a warm bath. What else could possibly be better than this? Amarle, asun ika aleichu imsa de malchusa. Anan lote havi alon imsa de malchusa. So Rabbi said something very profound. Rabbi said, Bar Shishach, here's the difference. The difference is you're enjoying yourself, you're having a nice time, you're enjoying physical, carnal pleasures, but at the end of the day, you live with fear of the monarchy. In other words, you live in fear of another human being. You still have another human being that asserts superiority over you, and as such, you are not totally free. We in Olam Haba, ultimately again have no what he calls imsa de malchusa. There's absolutely no fear of another human being that we have to experience in Olam Haba. Amar Lei, so Bar Shishach says, Ana miha my imsa de malchusa ika alai. So Bar Shishach says, me? I'm afraid of no one. What type of imsa de malchus do I have upon me? What type of fear of the government do I have upon me? So we'll listen to this. Adiyasi. So while Bar Shishach is still sitting there in his neck, up to his neck in the rose petals in the bath. So asahahu pristaka de malka. So one of the emissaries of the king ran into the bathhouse. Amrle kum dikaboy lecha malka. And he says to Bar Shishach, quick, get out of the bath. The king needs you. So I say, so amazingly enough, as they're having this conversation, and Bar Shishach says, me, I have no imsa de malchus, right? I fear no one. I'm my own man. So the messenger comes in and tells him the king wants to see you now. So he has to he has to dust off the rose petals, send the zonas home, and he has to get ready to go see the king. So I say, so amazingly enough, as Rav is saying this to him, this is ultimately coming to fruition. Amrle. So Bar Shishach was so impressed by Rava, so he said the following: Eina debay lemechse lecha bishusa tipaka. Any eye that looks upon you with the intent to harm you should become tipaka. Literally means should explode. It should go blind. So we'll say, look at Rashi for just a moment. It's the top Rashi. Eina debay ina lemechse lecha bishusa ayin hamisave liros raaschem teakar shari hakadosh baruch hu mamalei kol ta'avaschem she'af sichaschem nisbareres. So Bar Shishach was saying to him, I'm so impressed by you. Anyone who tries to look upon you and do something negative, that eye should explode. Because Bar Shishach was so taken by the fact that here Rav is talking to him, and Rav's words are coming to fruition right as he's talking. So what happens? Amrli Rava Amen. Rava said Amen. What happened in that moment? Rava said, Paka ina de Bar Shishach. Bar Shishach's eye exploded, or whatever, went blind. What was the idea being that apparently Bar Shishach himself in this conversation was trying to be disparaging of Klal Yisrael. So here he says, anyone who tries to be disparaging or speak negatively or do something negative to Klal Yisrael should go blind. Rava says, Amen, and Bar Shishach goes blind. Amen, Papi. So we'll say, okay, that's the end of the story. That's the end of the story. So the Gemara says the following: Amen, Papi. Actually, I'm sorry, it's not the end of the story. Papi says, so we'll say, remember again, let's go back for just a moment. So Rava walks into the bathhouse, sees Bar Shishach partaking of the pleasures of this world. And Bar Shishach says to him, ultimately again, can your Olam Haba even compare to this? So Rava says yes. Our Olam Haba is even greater. And he relates about the Imsa de Malchusa, about the fear. So the Rabbi says, why didn't Rava answer Bar Shishach from the following? Mehaikra, what's he quotes over the pasuk from Tehillim? Benos melachim bikarasecha. Nitzva shegel mincha bekeser ofir. So literally again, the daughters of kings will be your accompaniment. They'll be crowned with the jewels of Ophir. So I'll say, what the Gemara is understanding this to mean over here, it's a reference to Olam Haba, the idea being that we will dwell with royalty in Olam Haba. So I'll say, so it seems to be what Rav Papi was saying is, Rav should have said, listen, Bar Sheshach, you surround yourself with Zonos, that's fine, but in Olam Haba we surround ourselves with royalty. Why didn't he answer that? Or he could have said, the Gemara says, or he could have said, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak ibayle v'memra le'mehacha. He could have said the following pasuk: Ayin lo ra'asa Elokim zula secha yasel v'chakelo. Or Rabbi could have answered from the pasuk from Yeshaya: No eye has seen except for you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you will do great things ultimately for those who wait for you. So we'll say this pasuk is often quoted when discussing Olam Haba, right? Ayin lo ra'asa. That we know Olam Haba is great, but yet again, no one's ever seen it. Or I should say, no one's ever seen it and has come back to speak about it. So therefore, again, we know that it's incredible, we know that it's wonderful, but yet it defies comprehension and defies description. So the Gemara is pointing out that Rava could have given additional answers to Bar Sheshach in addition to the one that he gave. Fine, so we'll say, so halacha l'maisa, this actually is a very interesting idea. So how do we paskin in terms of sending a gift to an akum who's not from? So the Shulchan Aruch paskins, this is in Kuf Mem Ches Sifhei, Aser l'shloach daron la'ovid kol chavim b'yom chagam. We'll say you're not allowed to send a gift to an akum on his Yom Tiv, Ela imkin noda she'ina moda ba'avodas kol chavim ve'ina ovda. We'll say unless, of course, you know that the akum doesn't really believe in the Avoda Zara and he doesn't serve it. So we'll say, so that indeed is halacha l'maisa. So for example, if you know of an akum that ultimately does not really go ahead and serve his Avoda Zara, so you'd be permitted to go ahead and give him a gift. So we'll say, you should know, this actually is halacha l'maisa, because people give holiday gifts all of the time. And just, you should know, giving someone a holiday gift is not a pasha thing. It's not a pasha thing at all. So again, there are ways to deal with this in terms of you don't give somebody a gift on December 25th, but rather you can give them a seasonal, like a happy season, what do they call it? Happy holidays, right? So it might be for Chanukah, it might be for this, it might be for Kwanzaa, it might be for Easter, whatever it is. There's a variety of different things. But I will say, but there is mamish an issue of giving someone a gift. Again, this is assuming that Christianity, or I should say, this is part of a much bigger discussion, I should say, in terms of what other religions qualify as Avoda Zara. We know that just because a religion is not Judaism does not automatically go ahead and make it Avodah. We know, for example, Islam is not Avodah Zara. Islam is not Avodah Zara. That's virtually clear in all of the poskim. Christianity itself is a machlokes about. But without getting into the whole discussion over here, for our purposes here, the Shulchan Aruch tells us as follows, that if you have someone who quote-unquote is an akum, but yet, again, he's a non-practicing akum, then halacha l'maisa, again, the prohibitions that we saw on gift giving by the akum Yom Tiv, which we were introduced in the beginning of the Masechta, will not apply to that particular individual. Good. Let's go back there. So the Gemara goes on two dots. So let's remember again, going back to the Mishnah for just a moment. So what did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah said if a Jew was hired to work with the yayin nesech of the akum, so the wages from that work will be aser. However, if the Jew is hired from some other kind of work, and what? And then he goes ahead and then he ends up moving barrels of yayin nesech, the wages are permitted. So says the Gemara, so the Gemara says, Va'afal gav, delo amar le'li isuse erev. So they both say, the Gemara introduces here a phrase of L'Isuse Erev. L'Isuse Erev means comes nightfall. We'll say comes nightfall. L'Isuse Erev is the phrase that means after the close of the workday. So what the Gemara is suggesting about says as follows, that it sounds like from the Mishnah, that as long as the Jew was hired for another task, even if he ends up moving yayin nesech wine, whether it's during his workday or after the workday, the wages will be permitted. So the Gemara says, is that true? That even if he goes ahead and ends up moving yayin nesech wine during the actual workday, that ultimately the wages will be permitted? Or mini, if somebody hires a worker, both say if an akum hires a Jew to work for him, and then after the close of the workday, they both say, now what's the chabad after the close of the workday? The assumption is after the close of the workday, the wage has already been earned. We're talking about day laborers. So you get paid for a day's work. A day's work is defined, let's say for argument's sake, from 9 to 5. So now what happens? The Jew works from 9 to 5. At 5:15, the Akum says, can you do me a favor and move some barrels of wine for me? So what's the halacha, Rabbi? Schara mutter. The wages of that day are mutter. Rabbi, now why the wages of that day mutter? Taima d'amar le'lisuse erev. So the Gemara says, in kula yom alo. But it sounds like why the wages mutter? Why? Because it's after the close of the workday, which means the wages that have been earned were earned for permitted activity. This is kind of the Akum's asking me to do him another favor. Fine, I'll move some barrels for you. But that avoda is not included in the wages of my day. To which the Gemara says, Rabbi says, you're right. We'll say when the Mishnah says that if I'm hired to do a job by an Akum, stam job, and then he also asks me, and I end up moving some barrels of yain nesech wine that my wages are mutter. We'll say when are my wages mutter? If I went ahead and moved the barrels when Rabbi say after the close of the workday. So I earned my wage for that day, right? Whatever. So we'll say, so let's say again, if I earn $500 a day, so after the close of the workday, I earned my $500. He's asking me out to move some barrels. That's fine, because that avoda is not reflected in my earnings. So we'll say that's how Abai understands the Mishnah. The reason the wage is mutter is because I'm moving the barrels after the close of the workday. Rava says, no, there's no contradiction between the Bryce and the Mishnah. Lo kasha, that's actually very interesting. Hada Amarle, haver li mea chavios mea prutos. Hada Amarle, haver li chavis bepruta. But say, here's the distinction. Rava says, one is talking about a case where what? Where the Akum says to me, move 100 barrels for 100 prutos. And the other case is where he says to me, move the barrels, and for each barrel I'll pay you a pruta. What's the difference in those two cases? In the case where the Akum says 100 barrels for 100 prutos, so also the way we interpret that statement is, you only get paid if what? If you move all 100 barrels. Now included in those 100 barrels are what? Are yayin esech. So we'll say, because in that case, the totality of my wage is dependent on the moving of the barrels, therefore of the yain nesech barrels, therefore again the wage is asur. Masha'inkin, if the Akum says 1 pruta per barrel, then what will say? I'm permitted to collect the wage for all of the permitted barrels. The only thing is, I won't be permitted to take the wage of the yain nesech barrel. But the wage in its totality is permitted. Why? Because it's not for a unit of barrels, but rather again it's per barrel. So therefore, again, Rav is making the suggestion, I will say, that the Mishnah that says that I could go ahead and accept the wage is where it's set up as, Akum says to me, I'll pay you 1 pruta per barrel. So essentially, I will say, if I end up moving yain nesech barrels, I can't accept the pruta for that barrel. Or if I did accept the pruta for that barrel, I have to divest myself of that pruta. I've had time, I will say, first wide line, Samechem and Aleph, I've had time, we learned, Asocher es hapoel, V'amar lo ha'aver li mea chavios, v'mea prutos. Well, so what we learned, if somebody hires a worker, and he says to the worker, go ahead and move for me 100 barrels for 100 prutos, v'nimtzeis chavish yayin esech beinehen, and ultimately, again, they find 1 barrel of yayin nesech there. So what's the halacha? Scharo aser. Ultimately, again, the schar will be aser. Both say, now this Hatanya Rashi points out is binichusa. Binichusa also means this is a support. This is a proof to what we just said. So if the Akum hires me to move 100 barrels for 100 prutos, and then it turns out that there's a barrel of yain nesech in there, so the wage is aser. Why is the wage aser, both say? Because the totality of the wage was made dependent on what? The moving of the barrels of yain nesech, and therefore the wage itself in its totality is mutter. Is aser, thank you. So the Gemara says, however, chavis a pruta, but if he says move 1 pruta per barrel, and there's a barrel of yain nesech between us, and then what? Then scharo mutter. Then the wage is mutter. We'll say now what that means is the wage minus the pruta for the barrel of yain nesech is going to mutter. I will say this is indeed is halacha l'maisa. So again, where the totality of the wage is dependent on something to do with yain nesech, then the wage itself will be asar. But essentially, when the wage is broken up into individual units, in this case barrels, so again, I can't benefit from the wage associated with the moving of yayin nesech, but I can get benefit from the rest of the wages. Good. So I'll say similarly again, if an akum hires my donkey, he rents my donkey to transport yayin nesech, then what? Then the rental wage is asar. But if he hires my donkey to what? To carry his stuff or to ride on it, and he ends up resting legino, his flask on it, then the wage is mutter. Says the Gemara, hasulam. So I don't say, why do I need this case? We'll say this pretty much is the same thing as the previous case. Haynu reisha seifet tzrichale schara leishevala afa pisheniach ovid kochavim legino ale schara mutter. We'll say, I tell you why we need this case. We need this case because of the sefer. What did the sefer say? That if the akum rented my donkey to ride on it, and he ends up going ahead and putting his flask on it, so scharo, the wage is mutter. Lememra dilagin lavdino hula osve. We'll say why. Now is that to say that lemaisa, the akum has no right to put his flask there? So essentially he's doing something that's not part of the scope of the rental agreement. So because it's not part of the scope of the rental agreement, he's violating the terms, but I could keep the wage. Or mini, is that true? Hasocher sachamer socher. So listen, it's actually very interesting halacha. If somebody rents a donkey, so socher, the renter, so we'll say, if you rent a donkey, there's like terms of conditions. I guess it's like lahavdil, if you rent a car. So there's a parameter to the rental. There are certain things that you're allowed to do, certain things you're not allowed to do. So you rent a donkey, there's a term of rental as well. What's the term of rental? So the Gemara says, Socher maniach alav kisuso. So we'll say the renter, so meaning there are weight restrictions as to what you're permitted to put on the donkey. So the socher could put on his clothing. In other words, the essential we'll say is, why is somebody renting a donkey? Why are you renting a donkey? Right? So you're going somewhere. You're traveling somewhere, right? Vacation, right? It's like the Talmudic RV, right? You're going road trip. So what happens? What can you put on the donkey, Rabbi say? So the renter, mutar socher maniach alek ksuso, you can put your clothing on it, uliginaso, and your flask. Can't go anywhere without your flask, right? So you have your clothing, your flask, and mizonosa. It's interesting the order over here, right? Your flask comes before your food. So right, so you go ahead, you put your flask on there, your mazonos, shalos adech. We'll say you could put essentially everything you need for the journey. You could put on that donkey. So you can put your clothing, your flask, and your food. However, the Gemara says, Mikan ve'elech chamar ma'akilo alav. So we'll say, now interestingly enough, sometimes when you would rent a donkey, we'll say, what would that, so that often would come with a driver, right? The chamar, someone to lead the donkey. So anything more than that, the donkey leader? No, donkey, driver, good, fine. The donkey guy, right, could go ahead and tell you too much. He could stop you from putting anything else on the donkey. On the flip side, we'll say the donkey driver, what is he permitted to put on the donkey? He could put on there the grain, the straw, and his mizonos for that day. So we'll say, interestingly enough, the renter could put his provisions for the journey. The driver could only put his provisions on there for that day. Mikan ve'elech. If the driver tries to put anything more on there, the renter could prevent from doing so. So what do you see from here? You see from here that putting a flask on the donkey is a normal term of rental. So as such, again, why is it permitted to keep the rental if the akum indeed puts his flask on there? If putting the flask on the donkey is considered to be a normative part of the rental. Miha ila mosivle miamrina le nichile igra diliginaso. So we'll say Abai says here's the difference. We'll say putting the flask on the donkey is such an inconsequential act. What's the raya? What's the proof to that? We'll say if it turns out that the akum rents my donkey and he doesn't use it, doesn't put his flask on it, does he have the right to ask me for money back? Right? Does he have the right to for a donkey rebate because he did not go ahead and put his flask on it? And of course, the answer to that is no. So because it is such an inconsequential act. Therefore, what Rabbi say, it's not considered as if the donkey is being used for yayin nesach, and therefore, again, the wage, or I should say, the rental amount will be permitted. So we'll say, and the Gemara goes and focuses on this price we just quoted. Hechi dami. So we'll say, interestingly enough, let's talk about the scope of this donkey rental. Hechi dami. Idish shchiach lemizban chamar. Idish shchiach lemizban chamar nami leakev. We'll say, I don't understand. If where they're traveling, there's the ability to go ahead and buy food relatively easily. So then the chamar, the donkey driver, should be able to permit the renter from putting all of this additional stuff on the donkey. And if it's not easy to buy stuff on this road that they're traveling, then we'll say even the donkey driver should be permitted to pile on more food for the journey. Papa says no. So we'll say, Papa says, what's the case? So we'll say the case is where there is food available, not easily available, but as they go from town to town, there's the ability to kind of work hard and find provisions. So watch this. Chamar darki lemitrach ulemizbin, socher darki lemitrach ulemizbin. So we'll say the donkey driver is used to going ahead and actively seeking out provisions each and every day. So therefore, he is limited to what he's permitted to put on the donkey. The renter Rabbi doesn't want the tircha of finding new provisions in each and every town they go to, and therefore he's permitted to put more on the donkey, everything he needs for the entire journey. Avod Rav Acha b'nei Ravika. So what's this to this? The father of Rav Acha, the son of Ravika. So we'll say, who is the father of Rav Acha, the son of Ravika? None other than Ravika. So we'll say, so what happens? So Ravika, Amadeus. So listen to this. Ravika, Havashafach lechamra laovdei kochalim. Let's listen to this. So Ravika used to go ahead and pour wine for the akum. Now what's this case? Look at Rashi. Not Rashi, Samachem days. Havashafach lechamra laovdei kochalim. Hu hayamochalam yain. So we'll say Ravika used to sell wine to an akum. Now remember, there's nothing wrong with me selling my wine to an akum. So you used to sell wine to an akum. Listen to this. V'derech lamochre chavio shel yain litin gam hachavis l'lokin. V'yachar mina v'hachar mina ba'mafkid ika gulfa v'sharji shel keach mochre b'chanos mistakil lahan levad mashu mistakil v'yayin. V'rav ika havashafach lu megalfi shalakchu mimenu v'yavi v'ziki diavos. Listen to this. Ravika used to have a wine business, and he would sell wine to an akum. Now, interestingly enough, what would often happen is he would take his wine and he would pour it into their wineskin. So the akum would come, he would pour it into their wineskin. But part of his business is they would give him back the barrels. Now, normally, when you sold wine was often, or was that time, sold by the barrel, and the barrel itself, of course, is valuable. Valuable not only as the current receptacle of the wine, but also depending on the wine and depending on the barrel, might also be able to reconstitute additional wine in that barrel depending on the absorptions. So in general, again, when you sold wine, the price of the barrel was factored in as well. In Rav Ika's case also, what often happened is he would pour the wine from the barrel into the wineskins, and he would retain the barrel. The barrel would be given back to him as part of his fee. So we'll say, so what happens? So often, it would appear he would ferry the Ovdei Kochavim from one side of the river to the other side of the river. He would pour his wine into their wineskins, and they would give him back his barrels as part of his wage. Asu, so there were other Jews who saw him doing this. Amr leila Abaye. So we'll say, so they said to Abaye, Rav Ika's essentially, we'll say, now here's the issue. The issue is once that wine was poured into their wineskins, that becomes yayin nesach. So effectively, again, Rav Ika is making his money from yayin nesach. So what's happening over here? To which, so I said to Abaye, Rav Ika is making it through yayin nesach. So what happens? Amrlei ki katarech betera katarech. So ultimately, again, Abaye says, no. When Rav Ika is actually making the sale, he is engaging with permitted wine. We'll say, what does that mean? Look at Rashi. Rashi's gear says a bit different. Rashi's gear says, bedidei katarech. Shayayin eno ne'esar ad shemagia lekarkos shel zikei didahu. Zikei shel or gulfi shel cheres. So let's listen to this. So interestingly enough, what Abaye said was as follows. When does Rav Ika make the sale of an? We'll say when it's poured. Now, when it's poured, that's when the akum acquires it. When does it become yayin nesech? Only when it will say, only once it hits the bottom of the wineskin. So technically speaking, at the time of the pour, it's actively permitted. So therefore, at the time of the sale, Rav Ika is dealing with permitted merchandise, and therefore, again, so this is a permitted transaction. But one second. But Rav Ika will say he wants the wine to become permitted, right? He wants the wine not to endure. That's the wrong. He wants the wine to be maintained, right? So that's rotze b'kiyum. Remember we spoke about this before, that when a Jew has a vested interest in the continued maintenance or continued existence of yayin nesech, that is problematic as well. V'rotze b'kiyumo delo nitzteru zeki. That will say ultimately again. That's what Rashi says. Shelo yizbaku hanodo shalahem v'yitztarchu legulfi v'lo yov. Will say he wants the wineskins ultimately to remain intact, because if the wineskins break, he's going to have to give them the barrels. To which the Gemara says, the masni bahadayu. Ultimately, again, where the case over here is Rav Ika made a condition with them that essentially once I go ahead and pour you the wine, I'm out. Right? I get my money, I get my barrels, and we're done here. So if your wineskin breaks, something else happens, not my problem. Or the Gemara says, Inami demaisu prisdaki bahadayu. Or about the cases where what? Is ultimately again where the akum they would bring additional utensils, so that in the event that the wineskin would break, so ultimately again they would have other utensils to catch the leaking wine. But one second, but Lamais again, he is actively ferrying them over from one side of the river to the other. We'll say again, is that not actively facilitating them to the performance of an Isser, i.e. the creation of Yayin Nesach? To which the Gemara says, the Amrli Lemavruya Meikara. Well, so the possibility is Ravika went ahead and said to the ferryman from the beginning that when you go ahead and you see people who want to come over to my wine shop, ferry them. So also he makes a pre-arrangement. So because he makes a pre-arrangement, it's not problematic. Inami dinikiti behikitiri. Or Rabbi said the people who used to want to buy wine from Ravika literally would hold the knotted rope. I guess the knotted rope was the sign they wanted to go across. The point over here is that Ravika himself is not involved in the active ferrying of the customers from one side of the river to the other, and therefore again there is no Isser. Says the Mishnah Bosai. Yayin Nesach shenaf al gabe anavim. We'll say if you have Yayin Nesach that fell on top of grapes. So we'll say this is where I have grapes, regular grapes, Yayin Nesach falls on top of them. So what's the status of the grapes? So the Mishnah says, Yadichan veheina mutaro. So we'll say ultimately again, we just wash them down and the grapes are mutar. But if the grapes had cracks in them, then asuros. Because we'll say, what's the issue? The issue is the Yayin Nesach is going to seep inside. Naf al gabe teinim al gabe tamarim. So we'll say similarly again, if the Yayin Nesach falls on figs or on dates, im yesh bahen beno same time. So we'll say if ultimately again the wine infuses taste into them, so then asur. Then ultimately again the grapes and the figs will be asur. So we'll say, so again, we're being introduced to because no same time. If the wine contributes flavor, then ultimately these items will be asur. Baitos benzonin. So we'll say there was once an episode with Baitos benzonin. Shehevi grogeres bisvina. Let's listen to this. He was bringing grogros. We'll say grogros are dried figs. He was bringing dried figs on a boat. Vinishtabra chavish yayin nesach. And we'll say while he's on the boat, there was a barrel of yayin nesach. The barrel of yayin nesach broke. Spilled v'nafal al gabeim. Spilled on the figs. He asked the rabbis, what's the status of my figs? V'tirum, and the rabbi said the figs are permitted. Zaklas, we'll say this is the principle. Kol shabahana aso b'nosein tam asur. We'll say if yayin nesach falls on something and it infuses flavor, meaningful, positive flavor, then halacha l'maisa the object will be asur. Kol she'in bahana aso b'nosein tam mutter. And I will say, but anytime yayin nesach falls on something, but does not contribute a meaningful, positive flavor, then ultimately, again, the object will be mutter. We'll say, what's an example of something that is usher that doesn't contribute a meaningful, positive flavor? Kigon, chometz, shenofel al gabi grisin. Well, so this would be an example of, let's say, vinegar. Remember, again, vinegar could become usher, or could have been usher as yayin nesach already. Vinegar of an akum that falls al gabi grisin, that falls, we'll say, grisin are like, are beans or lentils. Right? So we'll say, so this again would be what we call nosin tan lifgam. Contributes to negative taste. Okay, so now the Gemara says that's all it's both saying. Says the Gemara, Maisa Lister, I don't understand. Your story contradicted the principle you said before. Well, so remember again, what did the Mishnah say before? The Mishnah said that if Yayin Nesach falls on the ta'in and falls on the figs, if the Yayin Nesach goes ahead and contributes a positive flavor, then it's asr. Then the Gemara tells us a story about Baitos benzonin. What's what happens to Baitos benzonin? He has his figs on the boat. What happens? Barrel of Yayin Nesach breaks, gets on the figs, and what was the halacha? The figs are mutter. So I don't understand. You just told me that if Yayin Nesach falls on the figs, it's aser. Then you tell me a story of Yayin Nesach that falls on the figs and it's mutter. Why would you bring a story that contradicts the principle? To which the Gemara says you're right. They both say the Mishnah is missing a couple of lines, and here is how it is to be read. Im no sim tam lifgam mutter. But say if wine falls on the figs, and it's no saint tam lefgam. We'll say no saint tam lefgam means that it contributes a negative taste, i.e., the flavor infusion has a negative impact on the food item itself, then ultimately the food item remains permitted. So the Gemara says, and therefore, Umaisinami bebaitos benzunan. Then Rabbi said the Mishnah tells the story of Baitos. What happened with Baitos benzunan? Shayamevi grogeres bisvina. He was bringing his dried figs on a boat. V'nishtabra chavis shal yayin nesech, and the barrel of yayin nesech broke. V'nafal al gabehen, and ultimately again spilled on the figs. Uba ma'aseh fnei chachamim, and this episode came before the chachamim v'tiru, and Rabbi say ultimately again they permitted the figs. Why did they permit the figs? Why Rabbi say? Because it was a case of no sin tan lefgam. Because ultimately again the wine contributed a negative taste to the figs. Good. Let's go back to it. Ahu kri dechiti denafel alei chavisa di yayin nesech. There was a pile of wheat, and the barrel of yayin nesech broke and spilled on the wheat. So now the shaila, of course, becomes, what's the status of the wheat? Shairi Rava lizabunli of the chum. Rava permitted the owner of the wheat to sell the wheat to the ovik chum. So essentially, again, you can't eat the wheat. Why can't you eat the wheat? Because the mice again have a concern that there may be some yayin nesech involved there, but you can sell it, which means what? You get hana from it. So which is another way of saying it's not us. It's really mutter. We're just not going to let you eat it. So Isrei Rava Bar Levi the Rava. So Rava Bar Levi posed the kasha to Rava. Beget sha'avar bo kilayim. But listen to this case. Let's say you have a garment. That shatnez got lost in it. Now what does that mean? Look at Rashi for just a moment. Sha'avar bo kilayim. Sha'arug kilayim chut echad ve'in mokomo nikar. So we'll say the case over here is where what? That you had woven kilayim into it. So sha'arug kilayim chut echad ve'in mokomo nikar. So we'll say you have an issue over here of shatnez. The issue is there was shatnez, but you don't know where it got mixed in. Harei zelo yimkarena lo ovichom. So we'll say you can't go ahead and sell this to an akum. V'lo ya'asena mardas lachamer. And we'll say furthermore, you shouldn't make it a saddlecloth for your donkey. Now, why shouldn't you make it a saddlecloth for your donkey? So it's actually quite interesting. So now we'll see the reason you can't sell to an akum. Rashi already points out is we're concerned that the akum is going to what? End up selling it to a Jew. So you can't make it into a saddlecloth. It's actually quite fascinating. Why can't you make it into a saddlecloth? Because what happens sometimes if I had a hole in my garment and I needed to patch it up, often I can take the patch from my saddlecloth. So because of that, there's a concern that it may wind up as part of my clothing. But what can I do? Aval oso tachrich lemeis mitzvah. I will say what I can do with it is I can make it into burial shrouds. I can use it for a meis mitzvah. Rashi says, Tachrich al meis, we'll say it's the second white line in the bottom of Rashi. Dechsib b'meisim chavshi, kevan shemeis adam nasa chavshi min mitzvah. So also when a person dies, they are free from all mitzvah obligations. Therefore, again, a mace has no issues concerning shatnez. Therefore, you could use this garment, which has some potential lost shatnez in it, as tachrich for mace. So it says, we'll say, why can't I sell this garment to an akum? Because there should be concern that what? That he's going to go ahead and resell it to Yisrael. So we'll say, so what do you see from here? You see from here that something that a Jew can't use, you can't just automatically say sell it to an akum, and if concerned that the akum is going to resell it to the Jews. Let's go back to our case. I have yayin nesech that's spilled on the wheat. So what did we just say? A Jew can't eat it. So what was the solution? Sell to an akum. Why shouldn't I be concerned that what? That maybe the akum is going to end up selling it to another Jew. To which the Gemara says, Hadar shara lemetchinu ulemifninu ulezabinu le'ovdekucham shelo b'fnei Yisrael. We'll say no. So what's the case over here? The case over here is where I ground it up, I go ahead and I bake it, and I sell it to an akum not in the presence of a Yisrael. So we'll say, therefore, what? Look at Rashi. Shalom B'nei Yisrael. The Chazi Yisrael, the Yisrael Chavrei Mazbel Le'ovik Hadar Zabin Le'ihu Miyad Ovik Chav. So we'll say, listen to this. The issue or the concern that the akum may take this wheat and sell it to another Jew. So it would only be in a situation where what? Where the Jew sees me selling it to the akum. So we'll say, so what do? I grind it up, I can make it into a loaf of bread, and I can sell a loaf of bread to an akum. But I have to sell it not in the presence of another Jew. So if the Jew doesn't see me selling it to an akum, then what? The akum is going to have a loaf of bread. We'll say, is a Jew ever going to buy a loaf of bread from an akum? And the answer is no. Why? Because we'll say that's pas akum. We already established that. So essentially, the Gemara says over here, is I can make it into bread, sell it to bread, not in the presence of the akum, not in the presence of Yisrael. So then I don't have to be concerned that the akum is going to sell it to another Jew, or another Jew is going to buy from an akum, because all the Jew is going to know is that this is a loaf of bread owned by the akum. The Jew therefore won't come to purchase it from the akum, because ultimately again it has the status of pas akum. Alright, so we'll stop over here for today. We'll pick up Emirat Hashem with the Sugya and continue tomorrow.
Why isn't it called the